Apologies from Provost Mackenzie and Councillor Nelson. Councillor Robertson is supposed to be substituting for Councillor Nelson. We'll now move to a roll call. Can the following members please indicate if they are present at the meeting? Councillor Crowther.
Present.
Councillor Curley.
Present.
Councillor McCabe.
Present.
Councillor McCluskey.
Present.
Councillor McCormick. Councillor Maguire.
Present.
Councillor McVeigh.
Present.
Councillor Robertson's not in yet. Councillor Reynolds.
Present. I have to leave sorry, I have to leave the meeting before 3:30. Hope that's okay.
And Councillor Wilson. Are there any declarations of interest? No. Okay.
Ian, could you read your bit about recording?
Yes, of course. Convener. So this is the meeting of Inverclyde Council's Audit Committee. This meeting is being held remotely and will be filmed and recorded for live and subsequent broadcasts available through the Council's website. The Council is a data controller under the General Data Protection Regulations and the Data Protection Act 2018. The Council broadcasts and records Council meetings to fulfil its public task obligation to enable members of the public to observe the democratic process. Data collected during the process will be retained in accordance with Council published policies available through the Council's website. Members of the Council are reminded they should follow the Council's established meeting protocols, including around the use of the chat facility, and that comments made in the chat facility are visible to all participants in the meeting, which may include members of the public who have also received invites to the meeting.
Thank you, Ian. We move on to performance management. Agenda item number 2, Internal Audit Progress Report, 26th of September to the 25th of November 22. The report is by Andy Priestman.
Thanks, Chair. So this report sets out the internal audit activity since the last meeting of the Audit Committee in October. There were no reports finalised, but there's a number of audits which have now been completed and they will be reported to the next Audit Committee meeting in February. The audit plan is progressing well with all risk-based work underway. In relation to the National Fraud Initiative, all data sets have now been submitted to the Cabinet Office and we're awaiting the data matches. These will start to be received from the end of January. I'll hopefully be in a position at the February committee to provide a verbal update in terms of the matches that have been received to date, but I intend to bring a full report to the April meeting of the committee that will set out the number and types of matches that have been received. In relation to the corporate fraud team, they continue to carry out investigations as appropriate, and they've also completed some work in relation to discretionary payments and school transitions from primary school to high school to ensure validity within these processes. In relation to internal audit action plans, there was one action due for completion by the 31st of October. This has been reported as completed by management. Chair, the format of the action plan status report has been updated to reflect the new process that will be implemented for audit actions going forward. In terms of the monitoring process, they'll now start to be monitored through the Pentana system. So action plan owners will receive alerts directly from the system when an action is due, and that will allow them to update the completion status of the action and add any notes as appropriate. Internal audit will continue to review the actions on a monthly basis, obtain relevant evidence to give Audit Committee that assurance that actions are being closed correctly by officers, and there will continue to be regular reporting from internal audit on action plan completion status to both the corporate management team and the Audit Committee. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Andy. Any questions for Andy? I don't see any hands up.
I placed a question in the chat, Councillor Wilson.
Oh, right.
It was just to ask Andy, you mentioned in paragraph 3.5 about staff capacity issues. Don't know if you can expand on that and how that might affect the sort of ability to complete the audit programme for the year.
Thanks for your question, Councillor, and through you, Chair. So we've got issues at the moment in terms of absence within the team. However, risk-based audit work has been progressed sufficiently, and we've also carried out work in relation to the corporate fraud reviews that haven't been started or haven't been looked at in prior years. There's a couple of fraud reviews in relation to the corporate purchase cards and also the catering stock checks. They've been done last year and the previous year, and there weren't any significant actions arising from those two areas. They were on the audit plan for 22-23 just to keep a continuous look at these things. So I'm fine in terms of deferring those where relevant into the 23-24 audit plan. There isn't any high risk in those areas. So in terms of being able to progress sufficient work for the audit plan and the audit plan opinion by the year end, I'm confident we'll be able to achieve that, Councillor. Hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, that's helpful, Andy. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. I don't see anything else in the chat. I see no hands up. In that case, we'll move on to agenda item number 3, external audit action plans, current actions, and the report is by Andy.
Thanks, Chair. So again, this is a similar follow-up report to the internal audit actions. This relates to external audit actions. So there were no reports due for completion by the 31st of October, and that's primarily because external audit were in to do their annual report on the 21-22 audit. So the report has been updated to reflect the 4 new actions arising from the external audit annual report to members for 21-22. These actions will now also be included in Pentana to allow officers to progress the actions through the Pentana system, allow them to monitor the status of the actions, add notes where appropriate, and internal audit will continue to report on the completion status to CMT and Audit Committee in the normal way. So happy to take any questions. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. There's only one question I see from the chat, from Colin MacDonald. Colin?
No, I've got no question, Chair.
Right, okay. Stephen's just informed me that Councillor McCormick's having connection issues. Councillor Crowther?
Thank you, Convener. It's on page 24 of the hard copy, where it mentions the Heritage Assets Valuation Review. I know that we have a spreadsheet that gives us all the common good assets that the council has. We also have a spreadsheet that gives us the details of the overall assets, but there doesn't appear to be one specifically that states heritage. Would that be added to the spreadsheet so that we know exactly what heritage assets that the council has?
Andy?
Through you, Chair, I'll have to defer to my finance colleagues to give an update on the status of this action. Thanks.
Thank you, Andy. Yeah, Convener, through yourself, I can try and answer that. We do have a list of the heritage assets. They were revalued around about 10, 11 years ago. So we do that in our working papers, but I appreciate members might not have seen that. Certainly, we'll be looking to update that. We'll need to possibly get some external valuers in to help us with that, but I'm working with Alana in the library section to progress that. Not but certainly with in those can be available as it needs to be.
Yeah, it's not in any great hurry. It was just to question it. So if it's a job in progress, I'm quite happy with that.
That's fine. Yeah.
Stephen, you've got a question? Or you're just telling us about Councillor McCormick. Any other questions for Andy on that agenda item? No, in that case, we'll move on to new business. New business, the SIPFA Audit Committee Guidance 2022 update. Again, Andy?
Thanks, Chair. So this report advises committee of updated guidance on audit committees. It was published by SIPFA in October last year, and it asks for committee members to participate in the self-evaluation exercise, which, along with officers' view of the updated guidance, will inform an action plan, which will then be presented to the next meeting of the Audit Committee for consideration and approval. Chair, understand that hard copies of the guidance and position statement have been circulated separately to members ahead of further college, just to let myself or Lynn, we can get that on to them. Happy to take any questions. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Andy. Colleagues, any questions on this for Andy? Stephen?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. In terms of completing the questionnaire, it would be useful if we could obviously do that electronically. And I mean, it is a pretty extensive questionnaire, I have to say. And I had a quick read through the questions. So from my reading of it, potentially, if we were to comply fully with the revised guidance, there could be quite a significant change to the way in which the Audit Committee operates at present. Would that be a fair assessment, Andy?
Through you, Chair, yes, there's some new things that they're looking for in terms of strengthening the governance arrangements within audit committees, but certainly we would take on board the elected member view as well as an officer's assessment and develop an action plan. Obviously, the action plan can take a number of years to implement, so it's about, you know, making sure we've got the right framework in terms of governance for the audit committee. There's a lot of areas where we do fully comply, but there's other areas which are new for the audit committee to consider whether there are opportunities to oversee in governance arrangements to more fully reflect the guidance. Hopefully that answers your query. Thank you.
Yeah, no, it does, and we'll obviously, I suppose, get into the discussion and debate around it once we sort of get the report on the self-assessment and any action plan. But I think it potentially, when we come to it, it will be about striking the right balance, shall we say. I can understand, yeah, you want to comply fully with guidance, but the reality is we're a relatively small council as well, and there are large demands on officers and elected members as well. But we can have that discussion and debate when we get to that point. Happy to fill in the survey, but I think we need to make it as easy as possible for members to fill that survey in.
Natasha, you've got a question?
Yep, thanks, convener. Mine was kind of based off of the self-assessment, so I had a quick look through it and I tried to fill out what I could of it, but there's some items on it that I think, as you said yourself, Andy, is things that maybe we are not doing yet that we would try to phase in, but I think it would be helpful to maybe have a separate members meeting where we can kind of thrash this out, because looking at this, there's some things that we do, there's some things that we don't do yet that I can see how we could implement that. It would be helpful just to be able to have a really frank discussion about it and kind of see if our understanding is correct with where we're at and where we need to get to. Do you have any plans to do anything like that, and could you arrange that if the committee is minded?
Andy? Andy? You're back with us. No, Andy's gone. Andy's had trouble this afternoon logging on. I think, Ian, if it would be an idea if Andy and yourself would have a word with the convener and see if anything can be done about the request from Councillor Maguire.
Yeah, absolutely. What I was going to suggest, Chair, was that I'll speak with Andy about it, and because there might be helpful for us to have a session even before the questionnaire, which we plan to do electronically, some sort of Survey Monkey thing, to help us to assist members in completing that. But yeah, very happy that we pick up with Councillor Nelson about that.
Okay, thank you, Ian. No more questions on SIPFA? No, I don't see any. Move on to routine decisions and items for noting. The annual governance statement 21-22, update on improvement actions. Now, I don't know if Andy's available, Ian. You might want to take this on, please.
Thank you, Chair. I will do my best if there's any questions. Members of the committee, I think this is just a regular sort of progress report that we would bring forward. But in Andy's absence, I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much. I don't see any questions. Oh, Mr. Puckrin. You're muted, Alan.
Apologies. Apologies.
Who's that? Alan, did you want to say something?
I did. Can you hear me?
You know.
You can hear me now. Good, good. My audio settings have reset to factory settings, I think. Sorry for that. No, just to help Ian out here. The actions here link to the annual governance statement that forms part of the annual accounts, and it is something that's kept an eye on by our external auditors, who are clearly, they're changing to KPMG from this coming year. And so the purpose of this update was just to allow the audit committee to be reminded of what those actions were that were in the annual accounts and the progress towards them. As you will note, a number of the dates have slipped, and I've spoken to Andy regarding ensuring that the corporate management team are cited on these actions and get regular reports on these actions. A couple of these actions will hopefully be dealt with in the next month or so. But myself, Ian and Andy are happy to answer any questions regarding any of the specific items.
Thank you, Alan. I think Councillor McCabe has a question.
Yeah, it was similar, I suppose, to the comment that Alan's just made. We obviously noted in the report that 4 of the actions were due to be completed by the 31st of October and none of them were completed. So there obviously has been slippage. So it is important that the corporate management team has oversight of these actions and that they're progress. I understand things can slip, but there obviously are important actions that we want to progress to a completion sooner rather than later.
Would Ian or Alan, would you like to comment?
No, I think I would fully concur, and that's why it's coming to the audit committee. So the audit committee have an oversight and an awareness of them, and I think there's a commitment from Andy that she will report back on progress regarding these, because these are as important as the other items that in the earlier items on the agenda.
Thank you very much for that, Alan. I see nothing else in the chat. I see no hands up. We move on to performance management agenda.